plus as well, like just as she mentioned that it looks easy, but don't listen to sir says for sir everything is easy, okay, but for us it's not. So what we are supposed to do here is that when you are giving a mock, please give 1.5 times of your time which you have given for the mock for analyzing it properly.
But again, I repeat, that is not a difficult exam, right? Practice, practice, practice. That's important. But if you are smart and you can think, you can crack XAT without any problem, right? So please do take XAT exam.
Hi everyone, welcome on board. So today we are going to have a very interesting podcast. We have Dr. Rahul Shukla, who is the convener for XAT 2024, speaking to a lot of students who have given XAT through various years to understand how XAT has been changing. And let's try to know a little bit more about what can you expect for your XAT, which will come just in a few months. Welcome on board, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So XAT will be like every year. There are not many changes. We have kept the structure the same it was in the previous years. What few changes we have tried to make this year are, first, we have already released our XAT 2024 overview. I'm sure you would have received that. In that overview, we have explained a few things. Like for example, there's always a confusion about two sections, which are GK and essay writing section, analytical essay writing. So we have clarified that those two sections are exclusively used by XLRI Jamshedpur, and we use them only after we make a merit list on the basis of the performance of your PI and other scores. So it is finally added to your merit list to give you an advantage if you are good at general awareness, at the same time if you have done well in essay writing. Number two, we have also this time clarified that in essay writing section, you have to make your essays more coherent by focusing on logical rigor, by substantiating your claims with reasons and evidence, and whatever you are trying to convey, it should be coherent piece with well-connected thoughts. That's what we have clarified. And in GK section also, we have actually this year clarified that there will be 10 static GK questions and 15 current affair questions. So these are a few, not changes, but the information which was missing. So this information we have clarified this year. Otherwise, the verbal section, the quant section, and also the DM section, they all will stay the same. So I'm open to any questions if you have. I would definitely love to answer to your questions.
I'll go up first, sir.
Yeah, please.
So, starting off with the current timeline in which the video is getting released, we are few days away from CAT. And of course, the ones who are prepping up for XAT know that it's the right time to get started, because of course, most of the audience would dive in only after the CAT is over. So to have an extra advantage, most of them will start out right now only. But when we talk about the similarities, the VA section is one such similar section which we have. But there is a great talk about it that the VA, the RCs of XAT are way tougher than CAT. Also, the vocabulary being used is something which is not the normal level English we use in general days. So what do you want to say about that? So any inputs also for the students?
Okay. So I guess this is the biggest myth which actually is circulating in the market. I actually don't agree to it, because I'm watching this XAT exam for many years now, and I know that the kind of passages we give and the kind of poems we bring into our paper, they definitely look unusual, but obviously they are not our stuff. They are the write-ups, they are the articles, the poems by people who are actually one of us. So what I'm trying to convey here is that this is the message that XAT's verbal section is difficult. I would say it's not difficult. It's like any other intelligent exam. But yes, sometimes definitely there would be some terms, some words which would not be familiar. But that doesn't mean that you cannot actually solve that particular passage. What you need to understand is that we never ask, for instance, vocabulary-based questions. We never ask meanings of the words from passages. We don't have that policy. If you can understand the underlying theme, and if you can interpret the passage rightly, you can actually arrive at the answers we are expecting from you. So calling it difficult will not be a justice to our exam, but definitely it's a smart exam. And if you can think critically, analytically, you can solve the questions.
Yeah, mostly the questions are inference based, is what you can
Correct,
say.
correct.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll go next, sir.
Please.
So I want to know the reasoning behind these small changes when we compare XAT with CAT.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, last year I attempted both the exams.
Mm-hmm.
So a student is attempting CAT. 1 month later, he's there for XAT. And he sees a lot of small changes. For example, breaking up DILR section in 2 parts. Okay. Some additional sections, for example, TM, essay writing. So what is really the reasoning behind these small changes? Because these small changes have a huge impact on our goals.
Okay. So I guess you're talking about those small little surprises you believe you get while taking the exam, right? Sometimes questions are asked differently. So I would say that first, we don't want to standardize our process the way other exams are standardized, because we know that students are evolving. Like definitely the new generation which is taking our exams these days, especially Gen Zers, right? They are smart enough, right? The sources of knowledge they have increased, the kind of climate they have, the environment they live in, the kind of people they interact with, and the kind of information they are surrounded with. Obviously they are well aware, they are smart enough. So keeping all those things in mind, those aspects of the the new students, the new generation, the kind of things they are doing, we try to keep modifying our exam. But those modifications are not dramatic so that students struggle. If you're smart enough, you can easily handle them. But to keep giving this message that XAT is an exam which believes in evolving and changing, we keep making those slight changes. But definitely they are not to discourage people from taking exams. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Hello, sir. I'll go next. So there is one very interesting section which I found on XAT. That is decision. What is the significant use of decision making section in XAT?
So if you say significant use for B schools who accept our scores, actually it's a differentiator, right? If you compare our exam, I would say don't compare because our exam has its own value. But still, lots of exams there out in public, students take those exams. Mostly exams don't have this section, right? The idea behind bringing this section is that number one, it's very difficult to game decision making, right? There is no specific formula which you can use and solve questions, right? Like for instance, in many tutorials, because I also watch tutorials, it is advised that you have to stay ethical in your decision making, right? I also say stay ethical, but ethical is not only the dimension you have to keep in mind while arriving at a decision. You have to go for many other dimensions. So if you are smart, you can understand a scenario, you can look at a problem from the perspective of a protagonist in a scenario, and you can also understand the resources available to the particular protagonist and other stakeholders and what is at stake of other stakeholders. If you keep all those perspectives in mind and arrive at a decision, you will be able to arrive at a decision. Another myth which normally people carry is that mostly the answers of decision making are very subjective, right? I'm sure you would have come across this myth as well. That's also not correct. I will tell you why. Because if you actually try to think of a problem from a perspective of a person who is in a case, sometimes that person doesn't have enough resources. But when you think as a student, you feel like the person should go for A alternative. But the protagonist doesn't have resources to go for an A alternative. So he or she will have to settle with a suboptimal B or C alternative. So if you understand situation better, you know that even C is an alternative in this scenario because A is unachievable. So they are not subjective. If you analyze scenario, if you understand all the nuances of that scenario, it's easy to handle decision making section. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Shouvik this side.
Yeah.
Sir, I have corporate experience about 12 or 13 years. And what I have found that when a fresh batch arrives at the campus, the first thing we have to do is teach them how to send emails. So I really want to congratulate you that you have persisted with essay writing. And many more people would focus on, because it is now main part of the exam,
Correct.
They would actually practice a logical way, a coherent way of writing an essay. And that would be very useful.
Thank you.
So that's what. My question is around CAT and XAT. So over the years, I wrote CAT in 2013 and 14. Similarly, XAT. I see the number of hours decreasing gradually for CAT. Now it is 2 hours. And the number of questions are almost same still. I think 70, 75 for XAT, 70, almost 66, 70 for CAT. So the perspective that I get from interacting with students is that CAT is now becoming a little bit of luck as well.
Correct.
But here in XAT, it is the intelligence. If you are well prepared, if you have studied enough, then you have enough time to solve as many questions as possible. Is that the idea, or?
Right. So for me, it is difficult to comment on CAT because I am not associated with CAT, but I can talk from the perspective of XAT. The idea behind giving enough time to students is that, number one, we don't try to test speed of students. And mostly our questions in our question paper are actually analytical questions. So if you don't think, you will not be able to solve. And for thinking, you require time. And there is also something which you will find unique about XAT or XAT is that in the first part where we have quant, verbal and DM sections, we give liberty to students to actually swap, right? Can move from one section to another section. That freedom we give.
Correct.
The idea is that you should actually choose the section of your choice. You can start with the section of your choice. You can take your time to solve, and also that you have time, you can also review your questions and answers, right? So that is why when people say it is difficult, the idea is not that we make our questions difficult. The idea is we make our questions analytical and we give you time. If you think well and you use analytical skills, obviously you will do well. That's what it is.
Sir, I'm sure a lot of students will relate to this. You say there's a lot of time and it's easy, but that really makes you feel that time crunch. Like I remember giving my exam and you have the liberty to choose between sections and then you're stuck. Like, should I spend more time on decision making or should I spend more time on going back to questions of the verbal or the questions I thought I knew too close answers and you go there? So is that actually easier? I mean, think it's
that
tougher.
is easy, I guess. This is not because of difficulty. It is because of not taking XAT, right? So for handling this problem, from this year onwards, we have introduced 2 more mock tests, right?
Okay.
The idea behind introducing mock tests is that we want to familiarize students to the structure and how they can actually manage time while solving, right? So I understand that when you are, for instance, you are in decision making, you want to spend more time in decision making, right? So now when you are actually practicing it, you can now understand how much time you can actually spend in decision making.
So the question I would want to ask you is, XAT has a very different marking scheme as compared to any other exam. Everywhere else, it's usually either there's no negative marking or it's just a +3 and a -1 or a +1 and a -1/4. We have negative marking for unattempted questions as well.
Correct.
So how do you think what's...
So like for instance, we have a minus marking for unattempted questions. But we also don't want you to leave all the questions, right? So for leaving also, after 8 questions, you will actually get a negative mark, right?
Yeah.
So idea is that you don't randomly attempt questions. At the same time, you also don't randomly leave questions, right? So use your intelligence, be judicious enough to understand which questions you want to attempt and which questions you want to leave, right? So I guess that's what we are thinking of. And because we put a lot of thought into making of XAT question paper, we want all the students to attempt all the questions. That's what we believe.
Yeah.
But not everybody can attempt all the questions, right? And students also have their own strategies. But at the same time, they should not fail in those strategies. So we have negative marking for not attempting and also negative marking for attempting wrong questions.
So essentially, if you have to say, you will say that XAT is not tough, but it is a smarter exam as
Correct.
compared to
so
the
that
others.
is what we are trying to convey, that it's not difficult. The idea is that if you are smart enough, you can easily crack. So there are a few examples on campus. I have lots of students I know who have passed out also and working with amazing companies. They have told their personal stories to me saying, so I prepared really hard for instance, other exams, but for XAT I didn't prepare. I just came to the hall to give the exam, and they could make to the interview, they could make it to the final selection of XLRI, and they could also make it to amazing companies from XLRI. So not only one, there are lots of students. So if you're intelligent, obviously this exam is for you. And I am sure everybody is intelligent. Practice also helps. But if you're not using brains and you believe that formulas can help, linear thinking can help, then definitely that is a difficult exam. But if you're creative, critical, and you can use multiple perspectives in solving a problem or solving questions, obviously that is a smart, easy exam for you.
Lovely. That's great. So are we going to see any surprises in this year's XAT?
I guess not. And that is the reason that I have come out with the overview, XAT overview for this year.
I want to ask a little controversial question.
Please.
Because it is mostly asked by students and I am their mouthpiece presently. So in 2015, the CAT's approach to give calculators, remove more analytical, remove all calculation intensive DIs to more logical DIs was a step towards bringing less engineers and more non-engineers. There are some questions around XAT exam also trying to focus more on non-engineers. Is that true?
So we have not done that sort of an analysis so far. And we don't try to create an exam either which is against a particular set of students or favoring particular set of students. We try to go for those students who actually can fit into the management culture, right? Obviously, logical thinking, critical thinking, problem solving skills are required for a successful manager. So we try to bring those aspects in our question paper. Definitely, we don't try to, create a question paper which would be either, for instance, you said engineers, right? Engineers friendly, commerce graduate friendly, or for instance, humanities students friendly. We try to keep it very neutral. We try to ask only those questions which can help us as a students better, so that they can, whichever school they are joining after taking that, they should do well over there and should become better leaders for their companies to join.
I have a question on similar lines. That's a very funny question I've been asked many a times when the XAT approaches on my channel, that there's multiple comments on the same line, that the current affairs which is asked in the XAT paper, it's up till when? Like, are we supposed to also read the day before? Like, I know the answer is very strict. I'm pretty sure you're gonna give a strict answer. But then, yeah, just to answer, like for the current affairs part, sir, if you can help him. Also the static GK.
So current affairs is like, which is very contemporary, right? So very contemporary is in the year you are living in, right? So obviously, if something has happened in 2020, COVID, and I say this is a current affair, that's definitely not a current affair, right? Something which is contemporary, something which is falling in the year of the exam, obviously that becomes contemporary, and that is current.
And anything about the static GK, because I have seen a trend that's a very good thing actually, that the static GK questions are somewhat always related to the current affairs. For example, if something happened in Gujarat, so might be a static GK question can come up or pop up related to Gujarat, like the present CM of Gujarat or something.
So the idea is, like, we are not testing actually the general knowledge kind of a thing. We want students who are also generally aware of what is happening around them, right? Because you cannot work in isolation once you come to a B school or you join a company. You have to be aware of what is happening in your country or in your nation, or what is happening geopolitically. You have to, you need to have that understanding, right? If you have the habit or tendency of keeping your ears and eyes open, I'm sure you will be able to crack GK really smartly.
That's a sense of relief for all the viewers out here.
Thank you.
So, sir, I want to ask you, according to you, what are the top myths about XAT exam? Top 3, tell me.
Okay, top 3 myths is very difficult to, but one is that it's a very difficult exam. So I am again saying it's not a difficult exam, it's an analytical exam. If you know how to think and you can look at the questions from analytical perspective, you can easily handle those questions. This is the first myth. Number 2, most of the students believe when it comes to GK and the essay section that they are not considered. When you are actually if you are planning to join XLRI Jamshedpur, these 2 sections definitely are used to actually get selected for XLRI Jamshedpur and XLRI Delhi, right? So but definitely they are exclusively used by XLRI. So this is the second myth. And third myth is that there are lots of surprises every year in XAT. I guess that's also a myth. They are not surprises. There are a few changes we used to make so that we can adjust ourselves according to the changes happening in the society at large. But we are trying to reduce that too. And I'm sure if you have solved previous year's papers, you know the kind of questions we ask in DM, verbal or quant. I'm sure you will be able to handle. So that's easy. Just keep yourself calm. Go through our papers. Our papers are the best source for understanding how that is actually created and what we are trying to evaluate. So that's it.
Sir, I would like to say the third one was not a myth. I remember writing XAT when you had to go. You open the exam paper and you'll come to know how many questions are there and how many marks you will get for each question. It used to be mentioned out there, which has evolved now over the years.
I guess when you took the exam at that time, it was PBT, paper-based test, right?
Yes.
Now, when we have moved online, we have definitely tried to standardize not the content but the structure, right? So that students should not struggle.
Yeah.
Because we know that like tier 1 students definitely have access to computers, everything. But we also want tier 2 students to apply for that. Tier 3 students who have limited access to, for instance, computers and all. Mostly they do their stuff on mobile phones. So keeping them in mind, we don't want to give lots of surprises. Even if you look at our passages, right, in our verbal section, we have started bringing in not very long passages because long passages require scrolling.
Yeah.
And when you're scrolling, you miss out on what you read initially and what is coming later.
Correct.
So we have deliberately kept passages which are readable, manageable, and the entire reading comprehension can be up on the screen along with questions. That is what we are trying to do now.
Lovely. So one last question to you is, so you mentioned that there is weightage for GK and essays for XLRI.
Correct.
Do we have like a bifurcation? Like what percentage? Like suppose there's a student who's done brilliant in XAT, amazing in interviews, still can't make it because of not doing well in the GK and essays?
I guess it can happen if you actually you tank GK completely and you tank essay writing completely. It can happen. There is a possibility. But normally, those who do really well in the interviews and in XAT, they also do really well in GK. This is the trend.
But sir is not giving the percentage and revealing what is the exact weightage. That's we trying to get some
So
cheat sheets.
That again depends, but obviously those who are good there, they are also good here. If a person is smart, he is smart or she is smart everywhere.
Lovely. That's really interesting. So I hope all of you guys who are listening and planning to give XAT in future are very carefully making notes. Don't expect surprises. Like sir mentioned, it's much more standardized. And do try out the mock tests and solve all the past papers. That should be more than helpful to clear XAT.
Correct.
Lovely. So any parting tips, guys? All of you guys have given XAT and sir has been setting the paper for the last 15 years.
No, I'm not setting anymore. No, I'm not setting at all. Actually, I am a convener. I am a face, but there's a team which sets.
You've been a part of the team which makes a few questions. So if you would have to give any tips.
I don't accept it. Yeah? I'm not a part of question paper committee at all. Yeah.
Got it, sir. Okay, so we'll get no tips from Rahul, sir. But the rest of you guys who've been through the student journey of XAT prep and cracking the XAT exams, what advice would you give them? What should they do before the exam?
So one advice that I would give based on my experience. So one mistake that almost 80 or 90% of the candidates make is that they think, okay, I'll give CAT and on the similar lines I prepare for that also and it will be very easy for me. But it's high time you should start dividing your time. If you are preparing for CAT for some time, please devote some amount of time for XAT also separately. Don't think that if I prepare for CAT, XAT is also done for me. That is not the case. So it's high time that you should start dividing your time equally or in some proportion for both the exams.
Simple. Just one add-on to that. So after the CAT exam, either you have done very well, so you chill off, okay, nice, or you have not done very well and you just give up. But just staying in this campus for, I think, 10, 12 hours, I can say you are not taking the right decision. Even if CAT has not gone well for you, you should double down. You should double down. And one of the best campuses to be, 75 years of heritage, and the best place to be.
So one mistake which I did was like I took decision making part very very normally. At the first glance, when I used to see the questions, it was very easy at the first glance. But go before writing a XAT exam, go for a mock test. Write approximately 5 to 6 mock tests so you can analyze your attempts and the questions which you are attempting, because decision making might confuse you. It looks
Yeah.
easy, but it is not at all easy. So yeah, write as many mocks as possible to know the pattern and everything.
And to add on to Anshika, yes, we have our official mock test out now, so you don't have to really worry about. You would know the real paper pattern. You would also be knowing the other things like where are the ZAC folks focusing more on. So that's definitely going to help all of you. Plus as well, like just as she mentioned, that it looks easy, but don't listen to sir. Sir says for sir everything is easy, okay, but for us it's not. So what we are supposed to do here is that when you are giving a mock, please give 1.5 times of your time which you have given for the mock for analyzing it properly. So it's not just that you got the question right, you will not look at it again. You'll have to strengthen that area as well. So therefore, even if you get the question right, just try to note down what was the reason why you got it right, so that you can maintain that streak of getting the right answers. If you do this, you'll definitely not see the fluctuating scores in your mocks as well. That's all.
But let me quickly add a bottom line. So definitely we should stick to the tips our friends have given, right? That will help. But again, I repeat, that is not a difficult exam, right? Practice. That's important. But if you are smart and you can think, you can crack that without any problem, right? So please do take that exam.
Lovely. That's a really interesting conversation we've had with regards to XAT being tough, difficult, easy, and like everyone's mentioned, take your mock scores. Please take mock tests, write in your scores, and ask any other inputs you have. We'll be all here to help you guys in your entire prep journey. And once you're done with your actual exam, you can come back and comment whether it was actually easy or difficult for the rest of the students as well. Thank you so much for joining in, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.